Now, in class, we talked about the number of shells, the number of valence electrons. Okay, so let's just look at that a little bit real quickly. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do when we are going to be actually drawing these Bohr diagrams, we need to find the element on the periodic table. Okay, so make sure your periodic table is handy and you're able to do that. Then we are going to determine the number of electrons that this element has. Okay, and remember that the number of electrons is the same as the atomic number. Okay, so if we look at our periodic table, for example, over here, sodium, 11 is the atomic number. It has 11 electrons. So this is how many electrons you will draw. Then we are going to find out which period your element is in. This will tell you how many energy levels or shells you will need to draw. You are going to draw your electrons in a counterclockwise direction, always starting at the right. Okay? All right, so we're going to start with the element carbon. So first off, a couple things that we need to know. There's only going to be 2 electrons allowed on the first orbital. There is only 8 electrons allowed on the second orbital. And for now, there is only going to be 8 electrons on the third orbital. Okay, we are not going to go beyond the 20th element, so that's what it's going to look like so far. Okay, so taking the steps, the first thing we need to do is find carbon on the periodic table and figure out how many, or where it's at, how many total electrons it has, and the period. Okay, so carbon. Carbon is located right here. Okay, so it has 6 total electrons. Okay, so I'm just going to write this down real quick. Carbon has 6 electrons. All right, I'm going to go back to my periodic table. I want to know what period carbon is in. So period again is rows. So here's row 1. Carbon is in row 2. Okay, so period number 2. All right, so we're going to go ahead and draw the Bohr diagram. All right, so since it's in the second period, that means that we have 2 orbitals around the atom. So I'm going to pretend like this black circle with the C in it is my nucleus. And I'm going to draw 2 orbitals around the nucleus. Okay, so it has 6 total electrons. So that's 6 dots that we're going to draw. Okay, so again, we need to keep in mind that on this first shell, only 2 electrons allowed. So we're going to draw the first one there. And I'm going to draw one here. Okay, because I want it balanced out. Only 2 are allowed there. Okay, so now that's 2. I need 4 more. So I'm going to go to my second shell. 8 electrons are allowed on that second shell. However, I don't need 8 because there's 6 total. So 6 minus 2 means I have 4 more electrons I need to draw. And so according to that rule, we start on the right-hand side and we go in a counterclockwise direction. Okay. Oops. Can't get that last one. All right, so we have double check. We have 6 total electrons, 2 on the first shell, 4 on the outside shell. Now we are going to check which group carbon is in. So I'll go back to carbon. Carbon is found in group 4A. So that means we have 4 valence electrons. So I'm going to write that down. We should have 4 valence electrons. I'm going to abbreviate here. Remember, we learned yesterday that valence electrons are electrons in the outside shell. So let's count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 in the outside shell. So we did that correctly. All right, let's go to the next example. Next example is hydrogen. So we are going to find hydrogen on the periodic table. Okay, so hydrogen is located over here. I'm going to shrink this down a little bit so that I can see both at the same time. Maybe. All right, so group number, since hydrogen is in that first column, group number 1, hydrogen's in the first row, so period 1. The atomic number, the number of electrons, is also 1. Metal, non-metal, metalloid. So looking at what I have here, in my color coding, it should be a non-metal. All right, so that first thing we need to know is its period is 1, so I'm going to put 1 shell. It has 1 electron. So I'm going to have 1 electron. And double check. Group number 1 means I only have 1 valence electron, so that is correct. All right, let's go to helium. Okay, let's find helium on the periodic table. Okay, helium is over here. Find the important information we need to know. Helium is found in group 8. Remember, we look at those A groups. Period number 1. Atomic number is 2, so I have 2 total electrons, and it is a non-metal. Okay, so let's start with our shells. Okay, since it's in period 1, it has 1 shell. Then I look at atomic numbers 2, has 2 valence electrons, 2 total electrons. So we actually put both of them on that first shell because that first shell can hold 2. Okay, so I know that the group number of helium is 8. However, remember, helium is the exception because it only has 2 total electrons, so it can't have 8 in its outside shell. However, it does have a full shell because only 2 electrons are allowed on that first one. All right, let's go to oxygen. Oxygen is found in group 6A, so group 6. It is found in period 2. Oxygen has 8 total electrons. Total, remember, that's not valence electrons. And it is a non-metal. Okay, so let's start off with our period has 2 orbits. 1, 2. Has 8 total electrons. 2 only on the first shell. So 8 minus 2, I have 6 to go. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so now that I'm up to 4, I'm going to start pairing them up. 5, 6. Okay, so I have 8 total now. 2 on my inside, 6 on my outside. We're going to double check. Group number is 6. That means 6 valence electrons. We should have 6 electrons in the outside shell. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So oxygen is done correctly. All right, so what I want you guys to do on this one, I want you to pause the podcast. Pause it, don't cheat, and I want you to try these problems, these last 3 on your own. Then, when you have finished the problems, or even when you finish one, unpause the podcast, check your answers. Okay? And then when you're done, you can go see the sub to get your homework for tonight. However, I am going to continue on and I'm going to go over these so that you have the answers and you can double check. All right, so now we have Al, which stands for aluminum. Aluminum is atomic number of 13. It is found in group 3A in period 3. So that means since it's in period 3, it has 3 orbits. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now let's start with the electrons. It has 13 total electrons. 1, 2. Only 2 are allowed on that first shell. How many are allowed on the second shell? 8. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oops, I'm not quite on the orbit there. Okay, so 2 on the first, 8 on the last. I'm at 10, and it has a total of 13. So 1, 2, and 3. Double check to make sure we did it right. Group number 3, we should have 3 electrons on the outside shell, and we do. Okay, so again, make sure you're pausing the podcast to try these on your own first. Okay, neon. Finding neon on the periodic table. Look over here in group 8A. Neon is in group 8. It's found in the second period. Has 10 total electrons. It's a nonmetal. So we have period 2, 2 shells. Okay, electrons. We have 10 total. 2 on the first. 1, 2. Okay, then to the second. 3, 4, 5, 6. A little bit bigger. 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, remember we're only allowed 2 on the first, 8 on the next. Okay, and I don't need any more because I do have my 10 total now. I do have 8 on the outside shell, group number 8. So that matches up. All right, our last element that we're going to do together is the element that has a symbol of K. Symbol of K is potassium. So potassium is found in group 1, period 4. 19 is the atomic number, 19 total, and it's a metal. Okay, so since it's in period 4, we have 4 orbits. 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. Okay, I'm going to try this a little different this time. Okay, so it has 19 total. It is found in group 1A. So that means that outside shell, we're going to have 1. Okay, so I do know that. Okay, so now I'm going to start from the inside again. So 2 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 only on the second one. All right, so now we're sitting at 2 on the first, 8 on the second. So that's 10, 1 on the last one. That's 11. Okay, so how many are allowed on that third one if we're trying to get to 19? Should be 8. 6, 7, 8. All right, so that would be potassium. All right, so this concludes the podcast for drawing board diagrams. For your homework, you guys, you are going to have a worksheet. Let me pull it up real quick here. That looks like, there it is, this. And I want you guys to try these practice problems on your own for homework. So that concludes